Hey TechKnowSurge! One of the things that we want to implement on our network are controls. Controls that help us implement security. But what is a control? In this lesson, let's explore what a control is. First thing that you have to understand with controls is that different people have different definitions and a different viewpoint on what a control is. And I've really rendered this down into 3 different definitions for it. Number 1, anything that you do, anything that you implement is a control that helps mitigate risk. So that's number 1. Number 2 is that it is pretty much the same thing as a standard. And then number 3 is it's a standard, but it takes it to another level. So let's talk about those different definitions. Here's definition number 1, or perspective number 1 on this. And this is what you'll find in like a certification like a Security Plus, or NIST defines it this way. But it's any measure or safeguard you put into place to help cybersecurity. So it's the actions you take, it's the devices you implement, it's the procedures that you implement. Anything that you do is a control that you're putting in place to mitigate risk. I've also often heard of controls and standards being used interchangeably. And so something like NIST 800-53 is one example of this, is that I've seen controls being used in place of what a standard is. And so it just sets up what is the expectations and lays out the standards that you are going to meet. So that's number 2. Definition number 3 is something that I see when it comes to more towards compliance. And for instance, this is like the SOC 2. They have controls that you have in place. And what is it? Well, it's some sort of measurable outcome. It's not just a standard, but you have to turn something over to prove that you've met that standard. So it's taking standard to the next level by proving that you actually are doing it. There are several different control categories, so we can categorize our different controls that we're putting into place. Number 1 is we could be having physical controls. That's the fences and the doors and the different physical aspects that we're putting into place to protect our technology. Then there's the technical. That's more of like, do we have a firewall? Do we have an intrusion detection system? Do we have software that's monitoring things? We have the operational side of this. This is the procedures that we're following. What kind of procedures do we follow to do our day-to-day functions throughout the company? And then you have the managerial. It's kind of like the operational. In fact, there's a lot of confusion between the operational and managerial. And the managerial is more of like, are we doing the risk assessments and managing the risk side of things? So it's more of like the security program side of this versus the operational would be the rest of the business. Now, I don't know that there's necessarily a really clear line dividing this managerial and operational. So really, managerial is not being used as much anymore. In fact, NIST has taken it away as something that they defined as being a type of control, although you still see it like in the Security Plus. We can also break down controls into different types. So whether it's preventative, deterrent, detective, corrective, recovery, compensating, or directive. And we're going to get more in depth into this in another lesson.